Okay, so you're seeing right now what I'm doing with my haircut, and it really was a haircut. Like I mean, and I'm kind of rocking the bald head. Even though I'm not technically bald, I'm just and to tell you the truth, it's been growing back. Like it's been growing back so very quickly. Like I mean, it's just been it's growing as fast as my beard, which is something I should have thought about, but I didn't really expect. Like I mean, when I looked in the mirror the other day, I noticed that the hair on my head was growing as quickly as my beard. It's just that based on past experiences, I've just seen my beard grow faster than the hair on my head. So somehow I expected, or maybe it's just that the hair on my head is usually so long that you notice the growth more with your beard than with the hair on your head. Blah blah blah. But I actually did look in the mirror the other day and thought, wow, the hair on my head is growing quite quickly. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, I kind of need hair, but I don't know how to achieve it at this point. It's a little bit of a mystery for me since I'm losing it, but I also shaved it off the other day. So I mean, I don't know, whatever. Um, so yeah, I listened to the last, as far as I can tell, the last Rubin Report interview, which was a live interview with Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, and the like they talked a lot about morality, and when you're talking about morality, you're also talking about religion. The two are just so synonymous that you can't get away from that talk. That Excuse me. I've also been drinking today, so I've had all these stomach problems recently, and indigestion and all that stuff. Anyway, point being is, yeah, I listened to it, and I was kind of jotting down some notes that I was gonna, kind of do as a Facebook post, and I did do it as a Facebook post. I did take those notes and post them down as a Spiralvent Facebook post. Um, and I have to tell you, it was a little bit confusing. I mean, Jordan Peterson definitely made the case for, you know, um, the ethics and morals of Judeo-Christian values coming from a biological origin, et cetera, et cetera. And then you think about how far back can that actually go, and it's something that I advocate. I actually do think that there are roots of um, human and maybe even animal, if you want to get into the animal thing. But like I mean, there are roots of human ethics and morals that come from a biological experience. Um, so I think on some level, I think what these guys do, Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, is that there's an obvious similarity, right? They don't agree with Sam Harris in terms of the value coming from within ourselves. Um, they tend to look to these foreign kind of understandings of where, and these metaphysical sort of understandings of where morality and value comes from in terms of human life and flourishing and things like that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So um, I don't disagree that that there are certain I do not want to use the word hierarchy, but I do agree that there are certain algorithms that take effect when it comes to and we'll forget animals for now, but there are certain algorithms that take effect when you talk about human behavior, when it comes to human understandings of behavior and value and ethics and morals, etc., etc. There will be, and I think in a lot of cases, and I know these are kind of soft sciences, but like I mean, there in a lot of cases I think there's a social science, if that's a thing. There's a social science with soft science that actually does prove some of these prove some of these algorithms to be true. And I mean, you could look at gender theory as a an affront to basically the way girls and boys choose gendered toys when they're very young. And I think from an early age, from not from an, I think that happens from an early age, but I think studies like that have been sort of subdued recently due to leftist politics and politically correct politics, blah, blah, blah. So I think there are examples of where these algorithms do play out. I think you look at other studies where, you look at countries where equality has been achieved, in developed countries like the United States and Canada, where men and women do actually, and this was pulling from an Atlantic article, but where men and women actually, given all the same circumstances, men and women will choose different career paths, will choose different life paths, and there's a definite dimorphic understanding of where these things will go based on sex, and gender to a certain degree. But we won't get into the whole gender thing right now. And I kind of forgot my point, but the point being is, I guess maybe what I was trying to say is that, going back to Jordan Peterson's kind of admission of, ethics coming from this deeply biological state, I have to say that it seems like there would be evolutionary mistakes the further we go along evolution. We don't evolve in a linear path. I mean, we're not evolving towards something. We're not made in the image of God. We're not, we don't adhere to any metaphysical. To pretend that we're evolving towards the image of God is to pretend that there is a hierarchy or an endpoint that exists. And that in itself is trying to lend credence to evolutionary theory as some sort of, hierarchical or some sort of like fatalist kind of understanding of human evolution. Not just human evolution. Sorry, I'm being redundant, but like, I mean, an understanding of evolution that is fatalist. But I will give you that Jordan Peterson. And look, I want to, my tone sometimes gives away this kind of air of me knowing exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm just saying things as I understand them. But the thing is, like, even if there is like a biological and further back understanding of where ethics and morals and altruism come from, you still have to agree that as these biological foundations of altruism and ethics, etc., get to the point where culture is now an evolutionary trait, there is a lot more room for fuck-ups, for things that don't actually work out. And I think Christianity, as an example, along with Islam and Judaism, etc., as examples of mimetic cultural kind of systems. They are susceptible to a lot of basically the mere fact that there is malleability there, as opposed to, like, what your blood cells do and what your fingernails do, etc. The fact that there is malleability there says that there is susceptibility to a lot of misinterpretation, a lot of mistakes, a lot of error. I don't believe, and this is getting back to my personal belief, as much as it can be personal. I don't think that there is an inherent value to human life. I don't think that because cultural systems make up this value through narrative and mythos, like I don't think that these things are necessarily indicative of some sort of divine source or some sort of like perfection that exists in mysticism or the mythical world or metaphysics. Like, I don't think that these things are necessarily true. Like, I think it's a human flaw to think that these things are true. Now, going back to the whole Sam Harris thing, as I understood the moral landscape, I mean, there would have to be some sort of like scientific base to understand where ethics and morals come from, and that's what I would naturally agree with. Knowing what I know and not knowing what I don't know, and knowing what I don't know, etc., etc. Um, I would have to agree that we make up that value. Um, like the source is us, like we actually, and that's kind of sounding Jordan Peterson-ish, like I know, so maybe there's a thingy there, but like I mean, we definitely make up that value. We do that to ourselves. We make these values up, but even then, you can't say that we make these values up, because it's as much as God and spirituality and religion is uneven and untempered. Um, we don't have even, even thinking of ourselves, have even understandings of what human value is. I mean, during the same interview, near the end, Ben Shapiro was saying that if you don't save your own child from disaster, and you save somebody else's child from blah blah blah. Like I mean, look, all I'm saying is like these guys are above me. These guys are way above me in terms of intellect and understanding philosophy and politics, etc., etc. But so maybe this was all covered. But I mean, I encourage you to watch that interview, that Rubin Report interview, and basically judge for yourself. But I mean, we're talking all sorts of things when he says that, in my opinion. Like I mean, when he says like if you save your child over somebody else's child, it makes you a bad person. Sorry, a good person. Like I mean, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of malleability. There seems like there's a lot of room to play with in terms of what is moral and what isn't. Oftentimes these things get boiled down to very simplistic scenarios. So the other day in my last video I was talking about the God delusion, and basically the way I see delusion as basically not being related to a delusion, defining a person that is not in alignment with reality, no matter what that means. But I mean, I admit I did simplify. I did simplify because I used the example of two people both seeing tall grass basically kind of bounce back and forth in an African savanna, and then basically one saying that it is a lion and one saying that it's not a lion, and the one choosing that it is not a lion being more susceptible to being taken prey by a hungry lion, and just basically dying and not being able to reproduce. So whatever genetic traits or qualities that aligned itself with the person that erred on the side of caution as opposed to reality, that might be a delusion, in the sense that it doesn't align with reality. But I mean, the way, just to go into it, like I mean, the way Richard Dawkins would describe a delusion, and I'm not putting words in his mouth because I haven't read that book in like 6 years, so I can't remember what he said. But I have bad memory, by the way. But I mean, the fact that religion is so far more complicated than just that little example of the lion in the bushes. It kind of says that a little bit more about delusion. So I mean, yeah, I guess maybe what I'm trying to get at is that, yeah, we all understand that maybe there's morality and ethics that come from blah blah blah. But I mean, you can't put an anchor down where human culture starts existing and say that these narratives and these myths and these things are now the truth, and they're only the truth because they're based on evolutionary theory. You're kind of saying that these truths that came about with the advent of mimetic evolution and culture and all these things are actually susceptible to a lot of mistaken identities, a lot of mistaken misconceptions, and a lot of weird understandings of the way the world works. And I think Enlightenment values, and I was having trouble understanding basically Judeo-Christian Enlightenment values, like whatever that means. But like I said, I'm not well studied on it, but I'm just sussing things out. But when we come to Enlightenment and basically the scientific method. And I know the solution to bad science is better science, as we all know. But when we come to basically scientific inquiry, we've kind of found a way out, and I think that's very important. I think that's extremely important. So that's kind of my point. I can't say much else on the matter. There were some other posts that I posted I wanted to say shit about. Yeah, there was this Jehovah Witnesses thing. But you know what? That's a different story. That's something for something for another video, to tell you the truth, and maybe even a blog post. But yeah, that's it for now. Bye.